Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Run Free and Strong. I'm Reto. We're back at Waveney Park in New Canaan, Connecticut. It's been 10 days since I completed my first ever 100-mile ultramarathon, the Yeti 100 virtual. I'll link the video on top. So we're out here to do an easy 3-mile shakeout run as I'm working my way back. And before we do that, I'd like to share with you 10 tips for your first ultramarathon. So quick backstory, and then we'll roll some clips. I ran my first Yeti 100-mile endurance run on September 25th in Damascus, Virginia. Didn't go well. Dropped out at mile 71 due to a hip injury. Learned a lot. Came back, spent the next 2 months recovering and then working on some lessons learned from that failed attempt to do the virtual Yeti 100, which I did on November 20th here at Waveney Park. It was brutal, it was awesome, it was beautiful, and let's roll the clips from those two events and then we'll come back and I'll share with you those 10 tips for your first ultramarathon. See you in a couple.
I really appreciate all of you coming. Everyone here has worked so fucking hard to be here. It has a lot of guts just to stand here today. This is your day. Fucking enjoy it. You guys ready? Go.
Okay, off we go. Okay guys, time check. 8 hours in. Started at 5 a.m. It's 1 p.m. 8 hours. 36 miles. Definitely in a pain cave at this point. Definitely physically hurting. Mentally, I'm strong. I'm good. But physically, not great. It's been raining for 8 freaking hours. You can see the trail is just flooded in a lot of places, and went across one of the big trestles. This thing is huge. Yeah, this thing is like a quarter-mile across. I cannot walk anymore. My left hip collapsed, so I told... Yeah, I couldn't even walk. I was stumbling.
Did you have somebody come in to help?
A couple of runners that went to the aid station, but if you can also let them know Good morning, it's Friday, November 20th, about 6 a.m., 40 degrees out, still dark. I've parked my car here. This will be my aid station for the Yeti 100-mile virtual challenge that I'm going to kick off right now. So just heading out of the train parking lot. I'm going to start off with a 2-minute walk just to get warmed up. We're heading from the parking lot to Waveney Park. There's a little bit on the road and then we'll head into the park. The sun's going down and evening's rolling in. So we're at 45 miles in. Just went and picked up my headlamp. The sun's gonna set pretty quickly here. It'll get dark within the next 30-45 minutes. Not gonna lie, the wheels are coming off. Body's starting to hurt. Hips, legs, feet. Aerobically doing okay. Mentally doing okay. Just want to make sure I can finish. This is my second attempt at 100. This is the virtual Yeti 100. I ran the real Yeti 100 a couple of months ago and I DNF'd. At mile 71 had to drop out due to a hip injury. So we just passed the halfway point, 50 miles. In 11 hours and 18 minutes. There was a big drop off between miles 40 and miles 50 for me. More and more walking until I just couldn't run anymore. Every body part hurts. There's not one body part that doesn't hurt. And we're just gonna keep going. Hey guys, we did it. Pardon my hoarse voice, but we finished the 100-mile Yeti virtual challenge. These 10 tips are in no particular order. I wanted to keep it to 10. There are a lot more. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. If you have additional tips that you think would be great to share, please drop them in the comments as well. One of the things I learned transitioning from a long distance runner primarily on the road is to focus not on miles for workouts, but on time on your feet. Regardless of the ultramarathon distance you run, whether it's a 50K all the way up to 100 miles, we're gonna be spending a lot of time on our feet. For the 100 miler, my net moving time was about 24 hours and my total elapsed time was about 28 hours. So that's a lot of time. And even for a shorter 50K or 50 miler, we're still gonna be spending anywhere from 5 to 10 hours on our feet. Second tip is to do not just one long run, but ideally back-to-back long runs. I did mine on the weekends. I did a long run on Saturday, followed by a long run on Sunday. It's not practical nor advisable to go out and do 30, 40, 50 miles on a single run. To train for an ultra is I ran a 10 or 12 mile run on Saturday, so my legs and body were tired, and then I did a 20 to 25 mile on Sunday. So between the 2 days, I logged anywhere between 30 to almost 40 miles. And again, time spent on the feet, the 10 to 12 miles was probably close to 2 hours plus or minus. And then the 20 to 25 miler was probably more in the range of 4 to 5 hours. So total time on a weekend would be, 6, 7 hours. Tip number 3, adopt a run and walk strategy. Most mid and back of the pack runners will adopt a 3-minute run, 3-minute walk, 3-minute run, 3-minute walk, and just alternate. I ran my first 25 miles and my legs were completely shot. I hit a low point and I still had 75 miles to go. And I was watching these other experienced runners walking. And so I started copying and mimicking and following them. And I got, like I said, to mile 71 before I had a hip injury and dropped. So definitely practice that in your long runs, your 10, 12, 15, 20 miler long runs, and adopt that strategy in a race. Tip number 4, train on the same or similar surface and terrain as your planned ultramarathon. If you are running a ultra that's on a groomed trail and reasonably runnable without too much elevation, find a local park or a space where you can do that similar type of training. If you have a mountain trail race that you'll be running that's more technical with some vertical gain, try to find a place where you can do that type of training, or get creative. Use an incline treadmill, walk and run stairs, do hill repeats, whatever works. Tip number 5, strength and mobility. I invested significant time every day doing warm-ups, active isolated flexibility stretching with a rope and a yoga mat after my runs, doing strength and core workouts 2 times a week. Our bodies will suffer. Embrace the pain, but be prepared. My body broke down late in the race and I could no longer move forward and I had to drop out. I spent the next 2 months before my virtual Yeti doing strength training and ability training, and although I suffered a similar injury, I was able to finish. Because of that, tip number 6, nutrition and hydration. This is potentially the deal breaker if we don't get this right. For a long ultramarathon, it's important to figure out what works and what doesn't work in terms of nutrition and hydration, and practice that during your training, during your long runs. Don't try it out for the first time during an important race. One of the things that's important here is going into a long run or going into a race, we are already fueled and hydrated. We cannot get to the starting line with a deficit. We won't be able to make it up. For me, I also learned that I prefer real food, particularly late in a race. There is nothing that got me to bounce back faster than having a nice hot vegetable soup at an aid station or some freshly made quesadillas. Gels and energy bars are fine, but at some point our bodies may rebel and may crave for real food. Tip number 7, take care of our feet. This was a big miss for me. My first Yeti, it rained for 12 hours and all of our feet got totally trashed. But even if it's completely dry and conditions are ideal, our feet will suffer and get trashed. In my second virtual Yeti, I taped my feet, I lubricated my feet, I wore high quality, comfortable Stance socks, and I wore my Hoka Torrent 2s for the entire 100 miles. Whereas on my first ultra, partly due to the rain, but also partly because I didn't take care of my feet, I had blisters, I was bleeding, I had cracks in the sole of my feet, I lost half of my toenails. Even a month later, my feet were still a mess. My second Yeti, because I took care of my feet, I had 0 blisters. I didn't change my socks once, I didn't change my shoes, and I had no issues. Tip number 8. If you're doing anything longer than a 50K, think about investing in a pair of trekking poles. I bought a pair of Black Diamond Carbon Z trekking poles. They retail for about $150 to $180, not cheap, but they saved my life and they were a big factor in me completing my first ultra marathon. These poles fold up, they're lightweight. When the wheels started to come off between miles 40 and 50, I started taking it with me, and running and walking with these things was great. I was able to stabilize, take the pressure off my hips, my legs, balance, propel myself forward. It was easy and it worked great. Tip number 9, whether it's a long run or race, break it into manageable pieces and think about milestones rather than miles. When I was doing my 100-mile virtual Yeti and I started to hurt at mile 40, I didn't want to think about the fact that I still had 60 miles to go. I was thinking about, I have a 3-mile loop to go to my aid station, which was my car, so let me do those 3 miles. When I hit 50 miles and it started getting dark, I didn't want to think about, oh my God, I still have 50 more miles to go. No, I was thinking about, let me get from 50 to 60, and then let me get to 70, and so on. If you're running from aid station to aid station, you're doing loops, you have other milestones along the way, or you're just clicking off time. Let me keep going for another 20 minutes, another half an hour. That's a better place to be mentally than to think about, oh my God, I still have 40 or 50 or 60 miles to go. Believe me, for me, the hardest miles was the last 2 miles. From 98 to 100, I knew I could get it done, but it was hard, painful, and very satisfying. Tip number 10, and this is common sense, but we'd be surprised how many times we hear people making this mistake. Don't try new things on race day. Don't experiment on race day. Oh, I tried on a new pair of shoes and I got blisters and I couldn't finish my race. Or, oh, I switched my headlamp and it was bouncing around and it annoyed me for the whole race. And this actually leads me to a bonus tip. Do a dress rehearsal a couple of weeks before your race. Ideally, as you start to taper, go on a long run. Do a dress rehearsal. Test your clothing, your shoes, your gear, your hydration, your nutrition, your trekking poles, your headlamps, your GoPro, whatever. Make sure you figure things out. Make sure you're comfortable. You're not stressed. You're not experimenting. You're not trying things out, and you're good to go on race day. I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips for your first ultramarathon, and wish you all the best in your next upcoming race. If you liked the video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Leave your comments below. Any other tips that you want to share? Any questions you have? And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel to follow my journey, please consider doing so. Would really appreciate it. And see you in the next one.